Let's jump right in. Today, we're diving into an explainer that cracks the mathematical code, literally the math, behind traditional Unani medicine, specifically when it comes to women's health. You know, when we picture ancient herbal remedies, we usually imagine a healer just tossing a pinch of this and a dash of that into a bubbling cauldron, right? Well, scratch that. As we'll see from these historical texts on Unani compound formulations, this whole system is actually grounded in a highly structured, almost algorithmic approach to human health. It's essentially medicinal engineering.
But before we get into the exact remedies and how they treat specific conditions, we have to ask a genuinely fascinating question, one that totally challenges our modern assumptions about traditional healing. How do practitioners actually calculate a drug's specific temperament? We hear words like hot or cold tossed around a lot in traditional medicine. But in the Unani system, this wasn't just a vibe or a feeling. It was an exact number derived from a strict mathematical formula. So here's our roadmap for this explainer. First, the science of murakabat. 2, calculating the mizaj. 3, formulations for women's health. 4, a spotlight on Majon Supari Pak. 5, a spotlight on Shabat Anjabar. And finally, 6, the balance of healing.
Section 1, the science of murakabat and the purpose of compounding. Let's kick things off with this concept of murakabat, which is just the term for compound formulations. And these are designed with intense precision. You might be wondering, why not just use a single herb? Well, the reality is a single drug is sometimes just totally inadequate to fight a complex illness. So practitioners combine them to create a specific, synergistic balance. It's basically ancient pharmacology. It allows healers to tone down a single drug's extreme strength by mixing it with an opposing ingredient, or to neutralize toxic side effects, or even to speed up how fast a drug reaches a specific organ. Moving on to Section 2, calculating the mizaj, the math of medicine. This is where ancient healers essentially turned into math nerds, using strict mathematical tables to determine the mizaj, or temperament, of these compounds. They weren't just guessing, they were literally doing algebra. To figure out the ultimate nature of a new compound medicine, they used a precise calculation. By multiplying the dose in grams of each individual ingredient by its specific degree of hot or cold temperament, which usually ranges from degree 1 to degree 3, they got a total value. So, looking at our example, our total drug dose is 17 grams, and our total temperament value is 23.
Now stay with me here. By taking that total temperament value of 23 and dividing it by the total drug dose of 17 grams, the practitioner calculates a final compound temperament of exactly 1.35 degrees. I mean, they were working with decimals. This gave the healer an exact, quantifiable value of how hot or cold the final mixture would be inside the patient's body. But wait, what happens when you mix opposing forces in the same batch? That brings us here, which brilliantly illustrates what happens when you mix both hot and cold drugs in the exact same prescription. It's actually pretty simple. You find the difference between the total doses, and you subtract to find the difference between their total temperament values. So we have 2 more grams of cold drugs than hot, and a temperament difference of 2 in favor of the cold drugs. Dividing those two differences, so 2 divided by 2, gives us a highly calculated final result of exactly 1 degree cold for this specific formula. This definitively proves the Unani system is deeply rooted in methodical calculation. They literally quantified nature so they could exert total control over the medicine's effect. Pretty mind-blowing, right? All right, Section 3, formulations for women's health, from concept to application. Now that we've got a solid grip on the sophisticated math behind balancing these drugs, let's see how this all builds into specific, targeted treatments for women's health. But first, a quick primer. These compounds usually take one of 2 physical forms, entirely depending on how they need to be absorbed by the body. First up is the mahajin, which is a sweet, paste-like confection, where powdered drugs are mixed into a thick base of sugar or honey. The second is a sherbet. You might recognize the word. It's a liquid syrup made by soaking or boiling roots and herbs, and then mixing that extracted liquid with sugar. Section 4. Spotlight on Majun Supari Pak, the uterine confection. Our first spotlight is Majun Supari Pak. This confection is deeply rooted in the Unani system for specific gynecological care. And let me tell you, this formulation is incredibly elaborate. It uses the astringent properties of the areca nut as its chief ingredient, but the prep work is what's truly wild. It's prepared by painstakingly boiling dates and roots in 10 whole liters of cow's milk. Once it's soft, it's mashed up and mixed with pure luxury ingredients like saffron and musk into a thick sugar syrup.
This super nutritional thick confection is precisely calculated to act as a powerful astringent and uterine tonic, specifically to treat issues like excessive vaginal discharge, known in the system as Ceylon Rahem.
Section 5. Spotlight on sherbet anjabar, the hemostatic syrup.
Next up, let's explore sherbet anjabar. This one relies on a totally different base and biological mechanism to heal the body. Where the majun we just talked about was a rich, thick paste, this is a fast-acting liquid. It's formulated specifically to stop excessive bleeding, like in cases of polymenorrhea. It combines the astringent anjabar root with some incredibly unique elements. Get this, they literally take a piece of iron, heat it in a blazing fire until it is red hot, and then quench it in water. That iron-infused water, called ab-ahantab, is then used to make the syrup. The combination of the root's properties and that sudden influx of iron creates a highly targeted, blood-stopping action.
Section 6. The balance of healing, comparing the formulations.
To really grasp how these practitioners targeted different ailments, let's put these two women's health formulations side by side. Seeing them like this really highlights the intentional design of compound drugs. Majun Sapari Pak focuses on restoring tone and stopping bodily discharge through a slow-digesting, rich, thick confection that rebuilds the body's strength over time. On the flip side, sherbet and jar uses a liquid format to quickly deliver blood-stopping properties and iron to a body suffering from acute, immediate bleeding. So the physical form of the medicine is literally just as important as the mathematical calculation of its ingredients. And this brings us right to the core philosophy of this entire medical framework. The text states it perfectly. The tendency of the humor to continue in the direction of further imbalance is opposed. Ultimately, whether a practitioner is doing complex division to calculate decimal degrees of heat or choosing between a fast-acting iron syrup and a slow-digesting date paste, the entire goal is to mathematically and physically oppose the body's imbalance. You meet a cold imbalance with calculated heat. You meet acute bleeding with calculated astringents. It is all about restoring equilibrium. So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this thought. We've seen how these ancient healers didn't just guess or throw things in a pot. They calculated, they compounded, and they formulated with incredible mathematical rigor. So how meticulously are you calculating the balance of your own daily health? Are you actively opposing your own imbalances, or just letting them slide? Thank you for exploring the mathematical code of Unani formulations with me today, and I really hope this changes how you view the incredible science behind traditional medicine.